I still have dreams about that weekend. The kind that jolt you awake in the middle of the night, soaked in sweat, convinced that something is watching you from the shadows. It happened just last summer, and not a day has gone by that I haven't regretted every decision we made leading up to that moment. It started off as a harmless getaway. Just a weekend trip with my friends Hassan, Zara, and my girlfriend Mina. We'd been working non-stop for months and needed a break from the constant pressure of city life. So we packed up our bags, rented a car, and drove out to a remote river spot called Kalari. It was quiet, hidden away from all the usual tourist spots, and supposedly untouched since that drowning incident a few years back. We thought it was perfect, peaceful, private, and most importantly, cheap. Zara had found it on some forgotten blog, buried under posts from 10 years ago. She said she'd been there as a kid with her cousins, and it was safe back then. I should have known better when I noticed the post she found had no comments, no likes, and no follow-up. Just a single image of a fog-covered river with the caption, "No one disturbs you here." We arrived mid-morning. The river was still, too still, almost like glass. There were tall pine trees surrounding the water, and the only sounds were the occasional birds and the crunch of our footsteps on the gravel. We set up camp near a flat clearing beside the riverbank. There were no signs of people, no rappers, no footprints, nothing. We laughed about it at first, how rare it was to find a place completely untouched. It felt like a dream, but now I understand. Places like that stay untouched for a reason. While the girls went to collect firewood, Hassan and I walked down to the river. We started skipping stones across the water. On the third or fourth throw, Hassan said he saw something move. A ripple coming back toward us. I thought he was just messing around until I saw it myself. Something hit the water from the middle of the river, like someone skipping a stone back at us. But there was no one out there. The river was empty. Neither of us said much. We laughed nervously, shrugged it off, and went back to the campfire, pretending it didn't bother us. Later that day, Zara asked Mina to take some photos with her by the tree line. I took a few shots of them on Mina's phone. They were both laughing, arms around each other. Just normal photos. But it wasn't until much later that we looked back through the pictures and saw it. There was something behind them. A tall, dark figure half hidden between two trees. It wasn't blurry. It wasn't a camera glitch. It looked solid. Human shape, but wrong. The arms were too long. The head was cocked to one side like it was broken. And the eyes, they glowed a faint gray, even in the daylight. Not bright, but enough that we all saw it. Zara screamed and dropped the phone. Mina stared at the photo without blinking. Hassan picked it up, zoomed in, zoomed out, then just put it down. No one knew what to say. We sat in silence for a while, then tried to move on like it was nothing. We told ourselves it was just a trick of the light. Maybe a burned tree trunk that looked like a figure. But we all knew that was a lie. That night, we split into our tents, me and Hassan in one, the girls in the other. I couldn't sleep. There were sounds outside the tent. Not animals or wind, whispers. Low, breathy voices too faint to understand, but too clear to ignore. And the sound of something brushing against the tent wall. At one point, I grabbed the flashlight and unzipped the flap. There was nothing there, but the air was freezing. I could see my breath, even though it was summer. That wasn't normal. I zipped the flap shut and lay back down, holding the flashlight in my hand like a weapon, heart racing with every sound outside. At dawn, Mina screamed. I bolted out of the tent, followed by Hassan. Zara was gone. Her sleeping bag was half zipped, and one of her shoes was missing. Mina was crying, shaking, saying she didn't hear her leave, but remembered her talking in her sleep. Or maybe not sleep. Maybe she was talking to someone. We started searching. Yelling her name, pushing through the woods, circling back to the riverbank. I followed a set of faint footprints leading to the water. They ended right at the edge like she'd walked into the river and vanished. The water was calm. No ripples. No drag marks. Nothing. Just her last footprint sinking into the wet soil. We didn't pack up. We just ran to the car. But when we tried to drive out, the road was gone. The dirt path that led us in was completely overgrown, covered in thick brush and branches. Trees where the trail should have been. It was like it had never existed. We started panicking. Mina was hyperventilating. Hassan was shouting, trying to force the car through the trees, but we weren't going anywhere. Then I saw Zara. She was standing between the trees, just a few feet from where the road used to be. Soaking wet, arms hanging limply at her sides. But her eyes weren't hers. They were the same lifeless gray from the photo. No expression, just empty. She didn't say a word. She just raised one arm and waved slowly, like a puppet on strings. Then she stepped back into the forest, out of sight. That night didn't feel real. The air was thick. The stars moved across the sky too fast. It was like time bent around us. We heard screaming. Not just Zara's voice, ours too. Sometimes Mina's, sometimes Hassan's, sometimes mine. Echoing from every direction, like the forest was playing us back. Mina stopped speaking. She just sat there, staring into the fire pit, whispering Zara's name under her breath. Hassan kept muttering prayers. I passed out at some point from exhaustion, and when I woke up in the morning, they were both gone. Tents still there, bags untouched. But no Mina, no Hassan. I ran. I didn't even grab my things. And this time the road was back. I don't know how I made it out. I drove until I found a petrol station. I must have looked like hell covered in mud, shaking, probably half insane. I told the police everything. They sent a team. Nothing was ever found. No tents, no footprints, no car. Just my backpack hanging from a tree like someone left it there for them to find. The pictures from that day are still on my phone. But the one with the figure behind Zara and Mina, it's gone. Deleted somehow. Or maybe it deleted itself. Every now and then I see her in my dreams. Standing by the river. Wet, still waving. And I wake up thinking maybe I never left that place at all.
I never believed in supernatural stuff. Not really. Creepy stories, sure. Weird coincidences, okay. But actual, unexplainable horror. I thought that was just for movies and old village myths. That changed in the summer of 2021, when my cousin Bilal came back from Canada. He'd been dealing with a rough few months burnout, stress, something close to a breakdown, and we figured the best way to help him reset was to get him out of the city. Nothing extreme, just a quiet weekend somewhere green and peaceful. My brother Saad and I planned it all. A one-day picnic in a forested valley about 2 hours past Abbottabad. No phone signals, no crowds, no drama. We found the place online, buried deep in an old hiking blog. There wasn't even a name, just a set of coordinates and one strange sentence. The place where you hear silence breathe. It should have sounded poetic. Instead, it just felt off. We drove out early on Saturday, took the highway, then a narrow unpaved road, and eventually ended up at the edge of a dense pine forest. The trail was barely visible, no signs, no markings, just a narrow dirt path swallowed up by trees. Bilal joked that it looked like we were entering a horror movie set. Saad laughed, but I noticed the tension in his smile. We hiked for about 40 minutes before we saw it. The clearing was perfect. A flat, grassy oval wrapped in thick trees. Right in the center was a wide grey stone, smooth like it had been carved. There were no insects, no birds, no wind. Not a single sound. It felt like we had walked into another world. At first, we were amazed. We laid out a blanket, pulled out food, started chatting like it was just any other day. But after a while, we noticed how weird the silence actually was. No rustling leaves, no buzzing. Not even our own voices echoed. Saad said something that made my stomach twist. He looked around and said, "The trees, they aren't moving. There's no wind at all." And he was right. The branches were completely still, like the whole place was frozen. Then we felt it, a low, deep vibration under our feet, like the ground was humming. Not loud, not sharp, but steady. Our bottles shook slightly. I pulled out my phone to record, but the screen flickered and glitched, like it was being jammed. The vibration stopped as suddenly as it started. None of us said a word. We tried to act normal again, like it was just a strange natural occurrence. But there was a weight in the air now. Something unseen, something pressing down on us. Sad was the first to suggest we leave. We all agreed. We packed up quickly and turned around, but the trail we came in on was gone. I don't mean it was overgrown or hard to find, I mean it didn't exist. It was just trees. Dense, dark trees in every direction. We walked in the same direction we had come from, walked for 15 minutes. And we ended up right back at the clearing. Bilal tried to joke, said maybe we were just disoriented, but his voice shook. Sad and I exchanged a look. We both knew something was wrong. Then we saw the boy. He was sitting cross-legged on the stone in the center of the clearing. Maybe 7 or 8 years old. Wearing faded suspenders and a checkered shirt. Like something out of the 1950s. His feet were bare. He was staring at us with a smile that felt wrong. But his eyes were worse. They were pitch black. Not dark brown. Not shadowed. Just pure, solid black. No whites at all. Sad asked, "Where did you come from?" The boy didn't answer. He tilted his head slowly, like a doll being tipped to the side. Then he whispered something. We didn't hear it with our ears, we heard it inside our heads, like it was injected straight into our thoughts. "The picnic never ends," he said. He repeated it again and again. "The picnic never ends." Bilal's nose started bleeding. He collapsed onto the grass, shaking. I rushed to him, but his eyes were locked on the boy. Then the boy stood up and walked backward into the trees. He didn't turn. He didn't trip. He just slid backward, eyes still locked on us, until he disappeared. We grabbed Bilal and ran, but every direction led back to the clearing. We tried cutting through the woods, breaking branches, marking trees. I carved a symbol into a trunk with my knife. We walked for 10 minutes, ended up at the same tree. The mark was fresh. It was like the forest was folding around us, trapping us in a loop. We started yelling, hoping someone might hear us. But the only response was laughter, children's laughter. Not one voice, dozens. Echoing around us, laughing from every direction. But we never saw a single child. Bilal started rocking back and forth, whispering that line again. Sad just stood still, eyes scanning the trees, whispering prayers under his breath. I've never felt fear like that before. Not panic, pure fear. The kind that makes your brain shut down, makes time feel broken. Eventually, night came, and we huddled in silence on the blanket. No one slept. When the sun finally rose, I opened my eyes and felt the warmth hit my face. I thought for a second that we'd made it out. That somehow it was over. But Bilal was gone. No scream. Just gone. His bag, his shoes, his phone all still there. I looked around, calling his name, my voice cracking. Sad joined me. Then I found something scratched into the dirt near the stone. It was a drawing. Childlike. 4 stick figures. 3 sitting on a blanket. 1 standing beside them with solid black circles for eyes. Above it, written in crooked letters, "Stayed for the picnic." I was shaking. Sad stopped speaking completely. Just stared at the dirt like he'd been turned off. A few minutes later, the trail returned. It was just there again. Like nothing had changed. We didn't speak. We just ran. When we made it back to the car, we drove without stopping. No music. No jokes. No glancing back. We told the police that Bilal got lost in the woods. They sent teams to search. Dogs refused to go beyond a certain point. Drones lost signal over the area. They found no clearing, no stone, no drawings. The GPS coordinates I had saved now led to solid forest. No opening at all. They said he probably slipped and fell somewhere. Maybe hit his head. Maybe ran off into the wrong direction. They wrote it off as an accident. Sad hasn't spoken since that day. Nothing, not a single word. He just stares at walls. Alive but hollow. As for me, I hear that phrase sometimes. When I'm alone. When the house is quiet, the picnic never ends. And sometimes when I close my eyes, I see Bilal. Still sitting in that clearing. Still smiling. Waiting for the next visitor.
Some warnings don't sound real until it's too late to follow them. The man tried to warn us. I know that now. And I'll carry the guilt of ignoring him for the rest of my life. It was early September 2019. The monsoon had passed, and the weather in the Murray Hills was finally perfect, crisp, green, clear skies. My wife Nita and I planned a quick day trip to the valley trails near Koyar. Just a picnic. Her friend Anam wanted to come, and her older brother Umar joined in at the last minute to drive. It was supposed to be a relaxing Saturday. No hiking, no camping, just one afternoon in nature with sandwiches, tea, and some pictures for Instagram. We parked at the trailhead near a forest post. Just as we stepped out, a forest guard appeared from a small wooden shelter nearby. He didn't look angry or suspicious, he looked tired, like he hadn't slept in days. He stepped toward us, and in a very low, serious tone said, "Don't go past the old boundary markers, and don't be here after sunset. You'll hear the cold before it comes. That's when you leave." I half nodded. Nita smiled politely. Umar just thanked him and we walked on. We thought it was some local superstition or a scare tactic to keep visitors from wandering too far. But I saw the way his hand clutched the strap of his rifle. That wasn't formality. It was fear. The trail was quiet, shaded with old pine trees, and opened into a wide clearing with a few wooden benches and a small running stream. We laid out the blanket, unpacked our things, and settled in. The atmosphere was exactly what we wanted, peaceful and untouched. Nita took pictures, Umar made tea, and Anam wandered around collecting dried flowers. After about an hour, Umar came back from behind the stream and said he'd found another trail. He said it led to an even more beautiful spot, maybe 5 or 10 minutes down. It wasn't marked, but the path looked clear. I should have said no. I should have remembered what the guard said. But Anam was excited, and Nita wanted to see it too. So we followed him. The trail curved through tight trees and descended slightly. As we walked, the air got heavier. Not colder, just heavier, like the air was thicker. Eventually, we reached another clearing. But this one felt wrong. The light was dim, even though the sun was still high. The trees here were darker, older, almost black in color, and packed tightly together like walls. In the center was a strange formation of old stones, like collapsed steps or maybe a fire pit. But what struck me first were the black cloth ribbons. They were tied to the trees in loose knots. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds, hanging from branches, tied around trunks, fluttering slightly even though there was no wind. Some were faded to gray, others still dark and new. It looked like a place that had been forgotten on purpose. Anam thought it looked like a shrine or some tribal offering ground. Umar laughed and said it added to the vibe. But Nita stayed quiet, close to me. She hadn't said a word since we stepped into that place. We spread the mat anyway and tried to eat. But the atmosphere had changed. It wasn't peaceful anymore. It was too still. And I started noticing something subtle but terrifying. Our shadows had changed. They stretched out longer than they should have. Not because of sunlight, just wrong. The shadows didn't match our movements. At one point, mine moved a second after I did. It was small, barely noticeable, but once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. Then Anam screamed. She pointed at the tree line, breath stuck in her throat. I turned just in time to see someone, a woman, I think, disappear behind a tree. I only caught a flash of her. She was wearing a red veil over her face and had long black hair. Her arms didn't move when she walked. Her body seemed too stiff, like her joints weren't real. We froze. Umar grabbed a stick, shouted into the trees, no response. Then came the sound, a bell, soft, distant, like one of those tiny bells tied around a goat's neck. It came from the trees. Then again, closer, not loud, but crystal clear. Like it was moving closer every time it rang. Anam said we needed to leave. We all agreed. We picked up everything and turned back toward the trail. It was gone. There was no path anymore. Just a wall of dark trees. No clearing, no bench, no sign of how we got in. We circled the area for what felt like half an hour. Every direction looked the same. Every tree seemed familiar. Then we heard the voice. It didn't come from any direction. It was everywhere. Deep, crackling, like gravel sliding down a slope. "Pick one to leave behind," it said. "Then the others may go." None of us spoke. My heart was racing. Nita was crying. Anam was whispering prayers. Then the voice came again. "Pick one, or none of you leaves." Umar stepped forward, hands raised. "I'll stay," he said. "Just let them go," I shouted at him to stop, told him to shut up, but he looked calm, too calm. He was staring into the woods like he was seeing something we couldn't. The trees began to shift, actually move. The forest tightened around us. The sky dimmed unnaturally fast, and the air got colder, freezing cold. I grabbed Nita and Anam by the arms. We ran, we didn't choose a direction. We just moved. Everything blurred together. Trees, shadows, whispers. The sound of the bell never stopped, but it started fading behind us. Then, just as fast as it all started, we burst out onto the original trail. The forest was normal again. Bright, quiet, warm. We ran straight back to the parking lot. The forest guard was still there, standing in the same spot, watching us come out. He didn't look surprised. He looked disappointed. "Why didn't you listen?" he asked. We didn't answer. When I looked back at the tree line, Umar was there, just standing, half hidden. His clothes were damp, and his skin looked pale. But he was smiling, not waving, not calling to us, just smiling. And his eyes were all black. We drove home in silence. We told the police that Umar went missing, that we lost him on the trail and couldn't find him again. A search party went out. Dogs wouldn't go beyond a certain point. Drones failed. They found no evidence he was ever there. Anam moved away within weeks. Nita refuses to talk about that day. Sometimes, around dusk, I hear a bell. Once, I looked out the window and saw someone across the street standing perfectly still. He didn't wave, didn't move, just stood there watching. And I don't think he ever left that forest. I think whatever was inside it is here now.